In this video, I'm going to show you 5 viral gimbal moves that are going to make your iPhone look like a professional camera. My name's Kurtis Hawkins and I'm a realtor with Real Broker. I'm also the founder of the Real Estate One team, which right now is Real Broker's #1 small team in all of Canada. And I made my entire career off of video marketing. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can do the same. Okay, so before we get into those 5 gimbal moves, the first thing that I want to talk about first is gear. Now, as you can see right here, all I have is a phone gimbal and a phone. That's literally as much gear as you need, and I like to keep it simple. And the reason for that is because when you start getting too much gear, you get more microphones, you get a bigger camera, it starts to get a little complicated and it just gets in the way of you actually going out and filming videos. When there's too many barriers in the way, it puts barriers in the way of you filming. So just make it easy. Everybody already has a phone, and go and get a $100 gimbal. There's a link below. Or I also have another video on the best gear to use to film these types of videos on this channel. Also, for all of these gimbal moves, the settings I'm going to be using is 4K and 60 frames per second. And again, I have a whole video on the best iPhone settings to film these in, which you can go watch as well. And finally, before we get started, you're going to need to practice a ninja walk. And a ninja walk is basically when you're filming with your camera, you're just gonna wanna go like heel toe, and make sure that your camera is staying level and not bouncing up and down. Because yes, this gimbal is gonna smooth out a lot of the imperfections, and there is stabilization in your phone already. But if you're walking just normally and your camera's bouncing like this, it's definitely gonna show up on the video and it's not gonna look professional. So as you're walking, you just want to do a ninja walk, walk really smooth, and just try to keep your camera as still as possible and as level as possible without any big bumps. Now, the first shot that we're going to go over is what's called the orbit. And this is actually my favorite shot to use on, kind of like the establishing shot of the home, the very first shot on my home tours, which is when I go left to right out in front of the home. Unfortunately, it's pretty windy here today in Lethbridge, so even if I tried to do it right now, probably wouldn't even look good on the camera. So we're just gonna practice this inside, and it is a move that I like to use a lot indoors too, especially for just a little bit of B-roll. So what we're gonna wanna do is try to focus on the middle of the frame here. So in this case, the middle of the frame would be the hood fan and the stove. So what I'm gonna do is line up my gimbal to be right in the middle, and as I walk from left to right, I'm gonna be going around the kitchen, but I wanna keep the center, which is again the hood fan, right in the middle of my screen here. So I'm gonna start here, get it lined up perfectly, and then use a ninja walk and go left to right and try to stay as smooth as possible while keeping the kitchen right in the middle. Now this orbit is one of my most used shots, like I mentioned earlier, and there's a ton of different scenarios you can actually use it. When I'm getting a bunch of intro clips, I like to get just a little bit of clips just throughout the house of mostly of the main areas. So for this example, this kitchen looks gorgeous, so I'm gonna use this one first. And instead of walking left to right, I'm just basically gonna do the same thing, but just with kind of the motion of my hands and as far as my lean will go, because I don't wanna get too much motion in this one. So what I'm gonna do is start here. And again, I'm gonna pick the center, which is still gonna be that hood fan, maybe the far left corner of the hood fan, right in the middle. And I'm just gonna go left to right, just like that. And again, it's not a pan, so it's not gonna be a pan left to right like this. Honestly, that looks pretty amateur and doesn't look professional. An orbit looks much better. So again, instead of panning left to right, keep the hood fan in the middle and go left to right, and it should look something like this. Another point to try to keep in mind, instead of doing that pan again, is just almost feel like there's a laser pointing at whatever the center is in your frame. And as you're continuing around, you wanna keep that laser pointed as you're going left to right or right to left. Viral gimbal move number 2 is the push. Now, this one is actually easier than an orbit. An orbit's gonna take a lot of practice, so don't get discouraged. But this one is super easy. And I like to use a push when there's lots of leading lines or something to go through. So in this case, we do have this big arch over here that I wanna showcase. And we actually also have leading lines with this edge over here. And what a leading line is means it kind of points your eyes towards the end of the shot. So basically for a push, very similar to an orbit in that you're gonna wanna keep everything straight, everything centered, and you're still gonna use a ninja walk. So what we're gonna do is frame everything up, again, very symmetrically. So this arch is gonna be right in the middle of my frame, and I'm just gonna start walking forward with a ninja walk. Just like so. So that's one area where you can use a push. Now the really cool thing is when you start mixing them together, So if I did one push there, and then if you come this way, on this side of the island, if I do a push into this area over here, just like so, then what you can do is speed ramp them together. So you go from room to room with a speed ramp, and it looks something like this. Now, before we get on to move number 3, if you guys have found this video helpful so far, or you've been watching this channel for a while and you found it all very helpful, but you still need a little bit more help, down below is a link for a free social media audit by me and Tyler Hassman, so we can give you a little bit more feedback on your social media to help you get jump started. Now, let's get back to number 3. Okay, now viral gimbal move number 3 is one that I don't use often, but I think is kind of underrated, and that's called the reveal. So basically what we're gonna do here is we have this gorgeous oversized fireplace and this big massive stonework behind it on this side that we kind of wanna reveal to the audience. So I'm still gonna use 0.5 on this one, but you could use 0.1 or even 0.2 if there's a specific detail that you wanna zoom in on. But what we're gonna do is kind of peek behind this wall right here, and I'm gonna put my phone on this side, and I'm also gonna tap just on that side so that the focus doesn't go to the wall. I want it focused down there. So from the first move, we're gonna incorporate an orbit with this move here. So what we're gonna wanna do is line this up again and kind of disguise the fireplace by this wall right here. And then we're gonna tap over on this side to get the focus. And then we're just gonna orbit around that fireplace. And you can see that the wall is disappearing and we're revealing that fireplace. So that's what it looks like in 0.5. Now if I go to 0.2 and I really zoom in on the fireplace, tap over here, go behind the wall, and just orbit in to the fireplace, revealing the fireplace. Now this can be used, again, in a situation like this where you have a wall, or maybe over here behind this custom stonework and this arch is an office, which you can also stop by and reveal as well. I'll show you one more example. Go behind the wall, tap into the room, reveal the office. Now, viral gimbal move number 4 is a term that I actually made up, and it's called the whip. Now, the first 3 that we kind of went over are more like basic cinematic rules that are just more classic, and this one spices things up a bit. I like to use the whip when I'm in a home that really doesn't make sense just to come through the front door, like this one. Because if I came in the front door, I'm gonna be going right into the stairs, walking up bumpy stairs, and then I gotta come around the living room and then reveal it, and it just doesn't flow very well. So in this case, starting off, what I would do is start all the way down this hallway here. We're gonna start with a push from our previous move. So I'm gonna turn it on here. I'm gonna get everything straight, do a ninja walk, and I'm gonna flip around and reveal the kitchen like this. And again, you're gonna wanna keep a ninja walk, keep everything nice and smooth. And what the whip does is we're starting off this way, going into the living room, but then we're gonna flip around and reveal the kitchen. Excuse me, we're gonna whip around and feel the kitchen. That's why it's called the whip. Now, for the final viral gimbal move, this one's gonna be like a tilt up or a tilt down. Now, for all of these moves that I've done previously, I was actually in pan follow mode on my gimbal, which basically means that, you know, as much as I tilt the camera, it's always gonna try to stay level and it's not gonna tilt with me this way, just left and right. Pan follow tilt, so PFT over on this side, on your gimbal, it probably says PFT, or there might be like arrows going up and sideways. This is gonna change the gimbal settings so that if I start tilting the camera up, it's gonna tilt up with me. If I start tilting down, it's gonna tilt down. I don't like to use those throughout the rest of the video because, you know, there are times when I do want the camera lower, but I still want the camera to be nice and level and vertical. But in this case, we're gonna want the pan follow tilt on. And this move is really good for, you know, a home that has a 2-story floor plan or a big chandelier like this that you want to show off. This mode is a little bit harder to kind of deal with because, like I said, it's going to tilt up and down. So you're going to want to start as square as possible using your grid lines. And then we're going to walk towards this chandelier. And as we walk to it at the same speed, we're going to tilt the gimbal up. So it should look something like this. Now, again, that's a really good move for showing things that are above you, but you can also tilt down and kind of reveal that, you know, how tall this home is and you're looking down on the front entryway. So again, we're gonna start with the same thing. We're actually gonna tilt the camera up a little bit towards the chandelier, and then as I go forward at the same speed, I'm gonna go down and look down towards that entryway. So it should look something like this. There you guys have it, 5 viral gimbal moves that are gonna help you get more views on your videos and get more clients. And if you guys like this video and found it helpful, there's a whole playlist right here, or just subscribe.